Welcome to AI Assembled, the top AI news for small business. I'm Chris Doelle, and each week I bring you the most important AI developments that can transform your business. Let's dive into this week's top stories.
There are weeks when artificial intelligence feels like a new product category. And then there are weeks like this one, when it starts to look like a land grab. The biggest example came from Meta, which said it is acquiring Moltbook, the strange and suddenly famous social network built for AI agents. Moltbook looked at first like a novelty, a Reddit-style place where bots could gossip, trade code, and behave like online personalities. But Meta did not buy it for the memes. It bought the founders, the talent, and the signal that agent-native products are moving from sideshow to strategy. Reuters says Moltbook co-founders Matt Schlicht and Ben Parr are headed into Meta Superintelligence Labs, which tells you this was not just a content play. It was a talent and infrastructure play wrapped inside a cultural moment. For small businesses, the story matters because it shows how quickly experimental AI behavior can be absorbed into the machinery of a giant platform. A few weeks ago, Moltbook looked like internet theater. Now it looks like reconnaissance for the next generation of social products, customer service tools, and ad targeting systems. If Meta learns how agents talk to one another, recommend tools to one another, or influence buying decisions inside agent-native spaces, that research does not stay academic for long. It migrates into the products small businesses already depend on. There is also a warning inside the headline. Reuters previously noted that cybersecurity firm Wiz found a major flaw in Moltbook's setup that exposed private messages, more than 6,000 email addresses, and more than 1 million credentials before it was fixed. That should sound painfully familiar to any small company being told to move faster with AI. The lesson is not that agent-first products are fake. The lesson is that the market is still rewarding speed first and governance later. So this week opens with a clear pattern. Big tech is buying distribution, buying talent, and buying optionality. If you are a small business owner, the question is no longer whether agent-style software is coming into your workflow. The question is whether you will meet it as a customer, a partner, or collateral damage while the platforms consolidate around you.
That consolidation theme ran straight into the Office suite this week. Microsoft announced Wave 3 of Microsoft 365 Copilot and said it is bringing the technology behind Anthropic's Claude Cowork into the product. Reuters reports Microsoft is adding Anthropic technology to Copilot to meet rising demand for autonomous agents, while also making Claude Sonnet available alongside OpenAI models. The company says some of that usage will be included in its $30 per user monthly Copilot offering, with more available for purchase. In plain English, the software giant that already sits inside your email, spreadsheets, meetings, and documents is now trying to become the switchboard for multiple frontier models at once. For a small business, that is both convenient and dangerous. Convenient because most smaller teams do not want to manage 5 separate AI tools, figure out which model to use for which task, or build security controls from scratch. Dangerous because the more useful Microsoft becomes, the harder it is to leave. Microsoft's pitch is that Copilot Cowork can take on long-running, multi-step work with enterprise security and data controls. That is exactly the kind of promise that will attract companies that like the idea of AI agents but do not trust them running loose on local machines. Then there is the counterpoint from Genspark. On Thursday, Genspark announced Genspark Claw, describing it as an AI employee that runs inside a dedicated cloud computer for each user. The company said it has passed $200 million in annual run rate, doubled in the last 2 months, and built the product on a mix of major models, including Anthropic Opus 4.6, OpenAI GPT 5.4, and NVIDIA Nematron 3 Super. The practical difference is important. Microsoft wants to pull agent work deeper into the suite you already rent. Genspark wants to give you a separate, always-on worker that acts on your behalf across software. That means small businesses now have a real architectural choice. Do you want AI embedded inside your existing tools, or do you want a more independent execution layer that can move across software for you? This is quickly becoming one of the most important decisions in business AI.
If segment 2 was about where AI work gets done, segment 3 is about who gets to stand at the cash register. Amazon won a temporary court order this week, blocking Perplexity from using its agentic shopping tool on Amazon's platform. Reuters says the judge found Amazon was likely to prove Perplexity had unlawfully accessed user accounts without permission. Amazon framed it as protecting trust and customer security. Perplexity framed it as a fight over whether internet users get to choose their own AI assistant when they shop. That clash matters because it gets to the core of agentic commerce. If AI shopping assistants cannot move freely across major platforms, then the future of AI buying may be controlled less by the smartest agent and more by whoever owns the account, the marketplace, and the login. For small merchants, that is a reminder that platform dependence is about to get even more complicated. If your sales rely on a giant marketplace, you may not get equal access to the next generation of AI discovery, recommendation, and checkout. At almost the same moment, Stripe and OpenAI announced the opposite vision. Their new instant checkout experience in ChatGPT, powered by the Agentic Commerce Protocol, lets people buy from United States Etsy sellers in chat now, with Shopify support coming next. Stripe says merchants can use one open standard to sell through AI agents, while keeping control over what gets sold, how orders are fulfilled, and how the brand appears. It also says the protocol is meant to work even if the merchant does not process payments with Stripe, which is a signal that the fight is not just over transactions. It is over the standard that defines how agents talk to merchants. In other words, the shopping agent economy is not theoretical anymore. It is splitting into competing models in real time. One model says the platform owner sets the rules and blocks outside automation when it threatens control. The other says agents become a new storefront, and merchants need machine-readable catalogs, payments, and fulfillment hooks. So the small business question is straightforward. Are you preparing for a world where a customer browses your site, or for a world where a customer's agent negotiates with your catalog, price, inventory, and checkout flow on the customer's behalf?
Another big shift this week came from NVIDIA, which, according to Wired, is preparing an open-source AI agent platform called Claude. NVIDIA has reportedly been pitching it to enterprise software companies, including names like Salesforce, Cisco, Google, Adobe, and CrowdStrike, and plans to bundle in security and privacy tooling. That is notable because the Claude category has been exciting and unnerving at the same time. Businesses like the idea of autonomous software that can carry out tasks across systems, but they have also seen enough unpredictable behavior to know that raw autonomy without guardrails is not a strategy. Claude matters to small businesses because open source changes the cost curve and the bargaining power. If NVIDIA can help normalize a more secure, more standardized agent layer that does not require buying a single closed assistant from a single vendor, then smaller firms may get access to more customizable automation without enterprise-sized licensing pain. The risk, of course, is that open source still requires operational discipline. Cheap autonomy is only good if you can trust what it touches, log what it did, and shut it down when it drifts. This is also why a quieter Washington story matters. The Small Business AI Advancement Act kept moving this month with bipartisan support, and would direct the National Institute of Standards and Technology to build practical, technology-neutral resources for small business AI adoption. That includes case studies, benchmarks, and best practices meant to help smaller firms understand use cases without having to reverse engineer enterprise playbooks on their own. Put those two stories together and you get a useful picture of the market. NVIDIA is pushing toward more accessible agent infrastructure from the supply side. Washington is inching toward better adoption guidance from the policy side. That does not solve the execution problem, but it does suggest that the next phase of AI competition will not be only about raw model intelligence. It will also be about whether ordinary businesses can deploy these tools safely enough, cheaply enough, and fast enough to matter.
Now let's talk about regulation. Because one of the most practical AI stories of the week did not come from a lab or a product launch. It came from Albany. New York Senate Bill 7263 would create liability around chatbot responses when a bot is impersonating certain licensed professionals. The bill text is broader than a single headline, but the business takeaway is sharp. If your company is using a conversational interface in ways that look like legal advice, medical advice, financial advice, mental health guidance, or other licensed professional judgment, lawmakers are moving toward treating that as a real accountability issue, not just a user experience issue. For small businesses, that matters immediately. A lot of companies have been tempted to describe chatbots as virtual advisors, virtual legal helpers, digital therapists, or always-on financial assistants because it sounds efficient and modern. The problem is that once an AI system starts sounding authoritative in a regulated domain, the liability picture changes. Even if this specific bill evolves before becoming law, the direction of travel is obvious. States are signaling that simply pasting a disclaimer under an impressive chatbot may not be enough if the system is effectively stepping into a role that normally requires a licensed human being. This is where the compliance burden starts to split the market. Large companies can keep teams of lawyers, policy staff, and product managers on retainer to redesign AI experiences when rules change. Smaller firms cannot. That means small business leaders need a simpler rule of thumb. If a chatbot is touching anything that would normally require a licensed human, treat the bot as a drafting aid, triage layer, scheduling assistant, or intake tool, not the final authority. The broader point is that the market is maturing. The first year of mass business AI was mostly about experimentation. This year is increasingly about boundaries. What can the bot say? What can it do? What records should you keep? And when does convenience turn into exposure? New York is not the end of that conversation. It is just one more sign that regulated use cases are about to become much more expensive to get wrong.
And that brings us to the most honest story of the week for small businesses. Most companies still like the idea of AI more than they like the results they are getting from it. ECI Software Solutions released an AI readiness report based on more than 550 small and mid-sized business leaders across the United States, Canada, and Australia. More than 70% said they have a positive view of AI, but nearly 40% said they still have not seen measurable results from their AI initiatives. The top use cases were data analysis and reporting, then content creation and marketing, then customer service, with inventory management also showing up as a major target area. The blockers were even more revealing. Companies said they were getting stuck on in-house expertise, data readiness, and basic uncertainty about where to begin. That may be the most useful reality check of the entire week. The winners in this cycle are not necessarily the companies trying the most tools. They are the companies that can connect one tool to one clear workflow with one measurable business outcome. If you want a practical benchmark for where your company stands, there is a free AI readiness test at freshmediaworks.com/AI checklist. That is freshmediaworks.com/AI checklist. So here is the closing picture for the week of March 9th through March 15th. Meta is buying agent-native talent. Microsoft is turning the Office suite into a multi-model control room. Genspark is selling an AI employee with its own cloud computer. Amazon is fighting over who controls AI shopping. Stripe and OpenAI are building a new checkout rail for agents. NVIDIA wants open-source Claude with more security. New York is warning companies not to let bots drift into licensed advice. And the average small business is still asking a very human question. Where exactly does this start paying off? The answer for now is to stay specific. Pick one workflow, protect regulated conversations, watch who owns the customer relationship, favor systems with permissioning and audit trails, and measure outcomes before you expand. In a market full of giant promises, readiness still beats hype. That is all for this week's AI Assembled. I'm Sam. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next Monday.
That's it for this week's AI Assembled, the top AI news for small business. If you found this valuable, share it with a fellow business owner. If you want a hands-on group that you can work with on your specific AI needs, consider joining Business Success Academy at freshmediaworks.com/BSA. Until next week, keep innovating and keep it real.